Hello, my name is Allison Carmen, and welcome to my podcast, 10 Minutes to Less Suffering. And today I want to talk to you about standing behind your life. And what I mean by this is standing behind the choices you have made in your life. And this came up for me so big this week. A lot of people that I've been friends with a long time are leaving New York City. And some of it has to do with COVID or life circumstance. And while this is all happening, I started to doubt whether or not I should live in New York City anymore. And it wasn't about a desire came up for me and I was like, oh, I feel like moving. It was watching what everyone else was doing that was creating doubt within myself. I moved from standing behind the choices that I made in my life to doubt and sadness and confusion. It was also so amazing as I just got ownership of the apartment I live in my divorce a couple of months ago. And I remember when my husband left me, the biggest fear I had, the thing that kept me up at night the most, other than the heartache of him leaving, was losing my home. I was so worried I wouldn't be able to afford my apartment. I wouldn't be able to stay here with my children. They wouldn't have a place to come home to. And so finally here I am, having negotiated really hard to get this apartment in the separation agreement, which will eventually be in the divorce, and I'm not standing behind it. I'm walking around saying, how can I live here? What can I do? I feel lonely, when this was the most important thing to me. And again, it's not about change. It's not about looking at your circumstances and seeing if maybe you want to do something different. It's standing behind the choices that you make so you could look at your life and say, wow, I chose this. What do I want to do with this? It's a difference between being a participant in your life, an advocate in your life, or a victim. So what was happening is that I started to become a victim of my circumstance. And I'm not saying that we're never a victim of circumstances, but often we have made choices that have led us to the situation that we're in. And maybe we didn't have as many choices as somebody else, or maybe the circumstances didn't work out the way we thought. But even so, if we want to stand anywhere in life, if we want to get solid ground so we can be stable enough to make our next decision, we have to stand behind it. And so for me, the minute I had this realization, I started walking around my apartment and I was filled with gratitude. This is my home. So a lot of people might be leaving, but this is where I live, and this is where my children come back to when my daughter comes home from law school and my other daughter comes home from college. This is where I invite my friends over. This is where I work from most days. And as I stand here behind my life, behind my choice, I'll figure the next thing out. That's what happens too. We get so worried about what's going to happen next that we let the future and the fears dictate how we feel in the moment. But all we can know is here we are. This is where we stand. We stand behind our life. We stand behind our decisions. And we trust that we will figure it out. And when I got through this, I started to really take an accounting of my entire life. Because I really wasn't standing behind all the choices that I made since my husband left. I was making it like I was a victim of those choices. And I'm not saying that I wasn't upset about things that happened, but 3.5 years in, I have made choices. I could argue they're not the choices that I would have preferred, but I still made choices. And if I don't stand behind those choices, it's going to be hard for me to move forward. So I actually made a list. I stand behind my CFO job at the Motherhood Center. I stand behind the 2 books I wrote. I stand behind my podcast. I stand behind my kids. I stand behind this apartment. And I just felt so strong. It felt like something had lifted me. And my feet were so steady in the ground. And that's why I bring this up today, to really ask you, are you standing behind your life? Again, circumstances happen and we have to always make the best of it. But as we're making the best of it, even if we don't like how things are exactly in the moment, we still have to stand behind those choices in order to change our lives, in order to be strong in the moment, in order to be resilient. So how do we do this? First, think about the circumstances of what happened to you in the past that makes you believe that where you stand is not good enough, where you stand is not okay. What makes you doubt where you stand? What makes you doubt the choices that you made? And see if you could come to this moment with the most love and compassion and kindness to yourself and recognize you have done the best that you could based on the circumstances that were given to you. And these are the choices that you've made from those circumstances. And honor them and stand behind them. And remember, it's not about where it's going. It's not about what you want. It's not about the fact that it's not perfect. It's just you standing behind you. Because if you don't stand behind you and you don't stand behind what you have, nobody will do that for you. And when you do this, you will feel so much stronger. And from that place, then you could look ahead. Then you could see, this is what I need to do to change my job. This is what I need to do to make more money. But you got to honor where you are. And I'm not even saying being happy about it. Just stand behind it. I chose this. I chose this relationship. I chose this job. I chose these things in my life. I stand behind them. This is me. And then you could find out in that moment, on solid ground, what you like and what you don't like. While you're appreciating yourself, loving yourself, having compassion for yourself. And also you go out into the world a different way. You're not apologizing. You're not doubting. What other people have is not going to make you feel bad because you're so busy standing behind what you did. And then there's wide open space. And then we could look and say, what do we want to change? What do we want to work towards? What else would we like to achieve? And again, even if where you're standing is not exactly what you dreamed of, it's still a place to stand. That's what it is. We forget to be grateful for the place that we are. And that's what happened to me. 3.5 years ago, where I am today was a dream. I didn't even know if it was possible. It was my biggest fear. It was my biggest worry. And somehow I managed to get it and then not stand behind it. And that's what so many of us do. We either get the life that we want and then we look and we say, it's not enough. I need more. And we don't appreciate what we have and we don't stand in it and we don't allow that to be our springboard for new things. Or we become a victim because we don't like what happened to us. And we don't like where our choices landed us. And so we can't own them. So we just feel bad about ourselves and we look what other people have and then we feel worse about ourselves. And then the outside circumstances becomes how we value ourselves. And then we don't believe we have what it takes to move forward. None of that is true. The circumstances you find yourself in today are what they are. And yes, some things happen to us that has nothing to do with our choices, but at some point we choose. And whatever choice you have made, stand behind it. Sit up straight, take a deep breath and say, I stand behind this. And be proud of yourself. Be proud of how hard you have fought to get to this moment. Don't disregard that. And don't confuse the fact that it might not be exactly as you wanted it to be with the fact that you have worked so hard and you have achieved things and you deserve to be able to stand behind it with your head held high to the world and saying, this is what I was given and these are the choices that I made and this is where I stand today. And here are my dreams. Because as you stand strong in this moment, you can start to dream again. From such a space of strength. I cannot tell you how much better I feel today. I have so much less conflict and worry and looking at what other people are doing or they're not doing. I'm just standing behind my decisions. And I feel resilient and I feel excited. Because I feel so much more is possible when I have my feet on the ground. And you can do that too. You can take control of how you feel right now. Look at what led you here. But look at the choices you made to get out of that circumstance, to make our life better, to do our best. Stand behind those. And that's when we gain back our dignity and respect for ourselves and control of what we can control. And with your head held high, own it, celebrate it, and then start to work on your dreams. And know that uncertainty is your best friend. Because if you don't know what's going to happen next in your life, everything's possible. Your dreams are still possible. They are still intact. But you got to stand somewhere. You got to stand in your life today to dream for tomorrow. So much more is possible than you can imagine. But you have to find this place within you that you support where you are in order to support yourself on the journey ahead. And when you stand behind your choices, you raise up your energy and your vibration and your thoughts and your creativity. And you can look ahead and know with an open heart that may be the best is yet to come. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can email me at allison@allisoncarmen.com. If you'd like to buy my book, The Gift of Maybe, or A Year Without Men, they're available at all major bookstores and online retailers. And if you like this podcast, you can subscribe and leave a comment.